Evening, wherever you are in our amazing world. Thank you for joining us today for shining the light on our community. I have a very special guest, and I'm excited because Dr. Rainbow Case is joining us today to chat about some stuff that I'm really passionate about, which is great. But before we go into what you're talking about, Rainbow, let me introduce you because you are unique. You are very, very unique because you are the very first holistic doctor, MD, in New York City. You've been working with health and longevity for 47 years, which is amazing. And you use principles that have been proven to stop the aging process and get healthy in every day. And there's so much more to find out about you, Rainbow. And I just want to thank you for coming on today. It really is an honor. And I'm really excited because what we're talking about is something that affects everyone, and it's aging.
This is absolutely true.
It is. It is. So can we just start, first of all, I'd love to know about you. Tell us a little bit about who Rainbow is and how you got to where you are now and to become the first holistic MD in New York City. Tell us a little bit about your journey.
Well, I'm 75 years old, so I've got a long story. Where do I begin? Well, at the very beginning, I was a very sickly child. I think I was abused and sick from day one, really. I was sick from the time I was a baby and always weak and frail and going to doctors. And then, even as I went through school, up through medical school. In fact, my medical school classmates would be surprised that I'm alive, I think, because my health was so poor. And so I finished in the 70s. So the 70s were kind of a hotbed of beginning new thought, really, to think out of the box. And I was really blessed very early in my practice to be exposed to new ideas that I didn't get in medical school, like the whole concept of energy. It's invisible. We can't put it in a laboratory. What is it?
Yes.
And very early on, I was exposed really through the martial arts and a couple of important teachers to understand that there's more to the human body. So I think that's one thing that has really carried me through, being able to see things holistically. The other thing that I think was a key turning point in my life through all of these explorations I was doing in the early 70s was the concept of responsibility for my health. Because when you're going through the medical system, it's set up to victimize you. You're a victim in that I'm broken, I'm coming to you to fix me. And it's a victim mentality to the
It
degree
is.
that every time I went to a doctor at one point, I cried. I didn't know why. I just cried the minute I got there. And I realize now it was all those years of feeling like a helpless victim. So when I realized that I am responsible for my health, I mean, people who've been sick a lot could say, oh, well, it's not my fault. I don't want to look at that. But the other side of that is if I'm responsible, that means I can heal myself. I have power over my health and my body and my disease. And so that's at the basis of how I've been practicing medicine since day one. Um, one of the things that I'm really passionate about is fasting as well, besides all the other longevity techniques that I use. And I got into that after a very difficult pregnancy. I mean, I was very sick the whole time, mostly because of stress. I was just over the top with stress. The baby was born really tiny and she died after a day. And I was depressed and the marriage was messed up and I was just lying around in bed until a friend said, you know, this is the same as suicide, being this hopeless and doing nothing. And I don't believe in suicide. So I got myself out of bed and I got out there and I started working at a fasting institution that had
Mhm,
55 people there every day. And I
mhm,
made rounds twice a day. So I ended up with an incredible amount of experience. This was a water fasting institute, really hardcore. And at the time, after my pregnancy where I was sick, I also on my own started doing lots of detoxing and even more healing things. And it all just came together. I also very early in my practice met a martial arts master from China who didn't even speak English. And he did the Taoist longevity techniques. And so from day one, between the fasting and the Taoist longevity, martial arts, internal energy healing, that's how I've looked at my practice.
mhm.
And I used to tell my patients, someday they're going to do research and prove me right, because I knew I was, but I had no like medical research proof. And now we have it. The research that they're doing in longevity proves that we can change our genes, we can change our aging gene and increase our longevity, actually our genetics, and we can reverse the aging process. And I'm passionate about that because if you don't do something about it, you're going down the tubes. I
Yes.
mean, most people, as they get older, if they do not intervene, their health will deteriorate. They will become the picture of old age that we all think is true, that doesn't have to be true. Okay, that's enough of my history.
No, I love it. I really, really love it. And thank you so much for sharing that because it's so true. I agree with you totally, Rainbow. The majority of the world think, you just go down that whole path and you get old and that's it. And you can't do anything about it. And you're going to end up either, you know, 6 foot under or well, we're all going to end up like that at some stage, but in a nursing home and not being and being totally dependent on people where, I love why you've come on to chat because it's very passionate that I really believe that you can maybe not completely turn around the aging. I do believe that eventually everything does have to come to an end because it's cyclic. But you can certainly slow it down and you can certainly improve, so you don't have to suffer. You don't have to, get old as such. And you, Rainbow, are the optimum example of it. Because, when you said I wouldn't have even thought that you were in your 70s. So thank you so much for sharing that. So tell us more about all the different techniques that you use. And also, there's some of the strategies that you've used and that other people can use that can help with all the stuff that comes with getting older.
Well, I'm in the process of writing a book called The 7 Tools to Stop the Aging Process and
Oh,
Get Healthier Every Day of Your Life, because I absolutely believe that. And I
yes.
believe that's true in my life. I am getting healthier. My doctor jokes, oh, get out of here. You're the healthiest patient I have because my blood tests are perfect. I am not perfect. I have broken so many bones and had so many injuries. And yes, I have wrinkles because gravity is a reality. And, I mean, there are certain things as we get older that happen, but health wise, keeping our organs healthy, that's what we want to do. My first husband, who we were both doing martial arts together, and he used to say, I want to die in a fight. And what he really meant by saying that was, I want to be so healthy and so vibrant when I get there. So there are one of the things that we've known about since the 1930s, but didn't keep studying medically and, doing research too much, because longevity doesn't really fit with the whole big pharma process. And so studying longevity, even now in this day and age, it's very hard to get funding for, because it goes against
Because it
the
counts.
medical perpetuation system.
Yes. Yes.
But something we've known for, gosh, now it's about 100 years, is the calorie restriction will enhance our longevity. So, in other words, the less we eat,
The better we are.
the longer we'll live. I love Michael Pollan because he's written a couple books about this, and he has a motto for nutrition, and he doesn't even like that term, and neither do I, because that takes it out of the realm of wholeness. But anyway, he says, eat food, not too much, mostly plants. And so, well, he's got a whole book called The Food. Oh, Michael Pollan. Anyway, he has a book, I forget the name of food, the food something. And it's about food, eating food, not chemicals, not something out of a box, not something that's been processed. If you look at it, you can hold an orange in your hand and say, this is a food. And it's sort of going back to that concept. So, yes, plant based for sure has been shown, but just eating less, so that's one way to think about it. Um, Oh, I'm just trying to summarize. There's so many things. But I think, just to summarize, eat food, mostly plants and not too much.
Love it.
The thing now that they have learned with the research, and they've known that calorie restriction, so I think that's what's behind the new fad of intermittent fasting. And don't get me started on why I call that a fad. And that's not what I do. But ultimately, it's about eating less.
Less.
Now, and that's what they've known, but now it seems the latest research, they're finding that it isn't exactly that that it is actually animal protein that we need to eliminate. That they thought it was fewer calories, less food, but now they're finding the biggest thing is animal protein. So, I mean, if I'm going to summarize, let's, pretty much what I just said about food, plant-based diet, and even there, don't eat too much. Obviously, don't do what I call drugs, sugar, alcohol, tobacco, any other kind of drug, and I definitely include sugar in there. Those are things to avoid. Fasting is probably the number one thing, because I mean, they did studies in the last century too on worms, where they knew the lifespan of the worm. I don't know what it was, 17 days or weeks, or I forget what it was, but they would let them grow to adulthood. They would fast them. They would actually shrink down to what looked like a baby worm. And then they would grow to adulthood. And then they would fast them and they would shrink down to a baby worm. They could do this indefinitely. What happens in a fast is that the turnover rate of your cells increases. So every cell, I mean, the blood cells turn over and the digestive cells turn over in a few days. Some cells, whether it's in our bones or other parts of our body, will turn over. By turnover, I mean die and regenerate.
Mhm.
Sometimes for some of them may take years. But the fasting process speeds that up. So I like to talk about after doing a fast, you have a born again body
Mhm.
because it's like a virgin body. You're just born. Don't mess it up this time.
Mhm.
So the other thing that is, should be no surprise, and I don't like the word exercise, I call it movement. But whatever it is, we must move our bodies between having, the detoxing and cleansing and being on a good diet. We must move our bodies. The studies in the blue zone, and the number one blue zone being in Okinawa, Japan, looking at, and blue zones mean the highest number of centenarians. So almost everybody in Okinawa lives to be 100. And they don't exercise per se, although they do the Asian exercises like the martial arts, Tai Chi, Qigong, even yoga, are exercises that are specifically about healing.
Yes,
Running a marathon or lifting weights isn't necessarily tied into healing. So they do that, but mostly what they do is they move a lot. They all have vegetable gardens. They walk everywhere. And so movement, of course, is really important.
bottom.
The other thing that I learned from the research that I didn't realize, although now that I think about it, of course, it makes sense, is temperature extremes.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
you know, I remember when I lived back in New England, I would go in a sauna and then I'd go out and make a snow angel. That's the extreme. But right now, I go to a health club that has a steam room and they keep their swimming pool pretty cold. And I just go back and forth. So, really, it's the concept of what they call hormesis, which means like good stress. So there is no black and white. This is stress and this isn't. Most of the things that increase our longevity are little bits of stress. So to sit around and say, I'm never going to move, I'm going to sit on the couch, I'm never going to go outside and get those horrible germs that are going to make me sick, I'm never going to do anything to protect myself. It doesn't work. We have to work for it,
All right.
literally.
Yep. Yep. And I love it. And thank you for sharing that because, again, it's something that I totally agree. And I want to go into a few of what you've just shared, especially the fasting. Like, I love fasting. I don't fast as much as I would like to because I also love food,
I
right?
know, me too. I love
Uh, and I hear about, as general, we eat too much. We eat far too much than what we normally do, but what we need. But okay, so first of all, before we get into fasting, let's talk about eating. Now, definitely you're saying, small, reduce the amount that we're eating, and plant-based. Totally agree with that. But is it something like, you hear that for some, it's like one meal a day. For other people, other people tell us you eat regularly, but just really tiny amounts. Does it really matter? Or is there something like, how often do you eat, Rainbow?
well, you're bringing up something that I hate, which is the feeling of deprivation.
Right?
And when I work with my clients, generally I try to get them on a program of unlimited quantities of whatever they're having. So when I do a fast now, I've learned how to do a juice fast of unlimited quantities that mimics the water fast. It took me a while to find out how to make that work. But if we walk around deprived, which is why a lot of us eat, we're lonely or we're bored or, so
Emotional eating, yes.
so to put diet in the form of yet another no-no or deprivation is not loving, and all healing comes from love, no
Mhm.
doubt about it. So if people would follow me around, they'd see, man, she eats a lot. So that's me. Now I know with the Okinawans, they have this rule: stop eating when you feel 2/3 hungry. or 2/3 full.
Well,
Always stop eating when you're hungry. And that's a habit you can make. I'm probably, I'm sort of there. I mean, I don't, but I can eat, 3 servings of something. I live alone and I get something that's supposed to be 3 servings. I eat the whole thing. But I am a vegan and I don't do sugar and I pretty much don't do wheat. So I can eat as much as I want, basically, of everything.
that's all, because
And
it's just
that's
about all
what
plants.
I like doing, is having people so they don't have to go into this place of, oh, I should only eat half of that. I mean, here's what I love about fasting that I'm seeing in my current fasting group, and this is my goal. Yes, to heal disease, and everybody in this group has healed disease and gotten off medications and lost weight. Okay, those are wonderful. Here's what I really love: their cravings have changed.
Yes,
They are no longer wanting foods that hurt them. They've gotten so in touch with their body that their body doesn't say, oh man, that brownie looks good. Their body would say, oh, that brownie, I don't
it's
like the
terrible.
way it's going to make me feel.
Feel
And that's my goal. I used to tell my patients, my goal is to be self-regulating. I
sure.
don't want to see you again. I want you to know what you need and know how to get it. That's the other thing I like about the fasting. We do long enough fasts that we get to heal all that emotional eating and the addictions, to where at the end of it, we just want what's good for us.
So how, let's talk about the fasting part, the logistics of it. How long do you fast? How long do you recommend fasting? And is it the same for everyone?
Well, the principle is the same for everyone. Like, I have a guy who's fasting now. He's like on day 33, and he's like, well, how much longer do you think? And because I know he's committed to healing, he's gotten off 4 medications and he's 80 and he's healed. But anyway, I said as long as it takes. Ideally, with my private clients, I want them, ideally, you would fast until you get all your goals met, whether it's a disease or a weight goal or whatever. But at least do it long enough. I really think you need 2 weeks at least to do any deep healing. You're going to get a benefit from a 1 day fast, a 3 day fast. I like the long ones because the first 2 days, they're the hardest. Once you're in day 3, you have no hunger, lots of energy. Why stop? Because
Yes.
it's so easy. So, yes, I agree. Fasting 1 day a week is wonderful. I can't always do it because I like to eat, you know. So I like doing longer therapeutic fasts because you just get, but minimum, what you want to do, fast is a tool, not a goal. So it's a tool to get what you want. So I don't work with people who have not set a goal or an intention for what they want to get. So one way to know how long to fast is, have you reached any of your goals? It's funny with this man that he had 14 goals. I tell people, get as many as you can. He's met 7 of them.
Mhm,
One of them, he said, that was on his list was to become an inch taller.
mhm,
So we had a discussion about that yesterday, about ways he might be able to do that.
mhm.
And so some of these, but I tell people, put as many goals as you can. But if you have weight to lose, that's a good one because it's so tangible. You
Mhm.
can measure it. Look at how you can measure. But a lot of people, I work with people, and in this current group, everybody's in their 60s or 70s. And they already were on medications or had. So what you want to do is not wait until you have high blood pressure or diabetes or arthritis. Ideally, what you want to do is do this process before you get there. It's the
Good.
same. Anti-aging is the same whether you're 20 or 80.
Yep.
It's the same principles.
It's the same principles. So thank you for that. We do have a few people watching us. So I'm here having a chat with Dr. Rainbow, who's all about anti-aging and everything that we can do to slow the aging process down. So when you fast, Rainbow, or for your clients and stuff, what does that look like? Is it only water? Or is it liquid? Can you have, like, is it just any type of liquid? Can you have soups and things like that?
Well, I would be happy. I do have a handout on the program. If any
Mm-hmm.
of your listeners, I would be happy to share that.
Yeah.
It's basically, well, there's a continuum of water all the way down to eating and drinking and everything in the world. But basically, the thing that works that puts us in the same state as a water fast is only up to fruit juices. Vegetable juices, if you're really skinny like I am, you'll probably still do a lot of detoxifying. But if you have any weight to lose at all, that probably shows that you have a little toxicity and should only do fruit. Unlimited quantities, but something like vegetable broth will kill the fast.
Okay.
That's something that makes no sense, but I discovered in all of my experiments trying to get, and I did blood tests on everybody and trying to get the same results like on day 5 of a water fast. I want the same results on day 5 of a juice fast. And I discovered you could do unlimited quantities of fruit juice because you're not metabolizing it. You're just using it for energy.
Hey, so can we talk a little bit about that? Because there is beliefs that I've heard that, to me, fruit juice is natural, right? So absolutely. But there is a way of thinking that juice contains, fruit contains a tremendous amount of sugar, even though it's natural, and that it's actually really bad for you.
Yes, I hear that all the time. Oh, there's too much sugar. Don't get me started on that. But I think reading Michael Pollan, if you look at the concept of nutritionism, which is something that's taken over the last several decades, and it has not helped our health. It's breaking things down into pieces and thinking, first of all, there are no diseases of lack in this country. We don't have scurvy and beriberi and all these deficiency diseases. Our diseases are all diseases of abundance, but that's another aside. So it goes back to that concept of food. What is a food? A food is not like if I were to put you in this really fancy analytical computerized system that would analyze Sophia in everything that you're made of. It would be these long pages of all of these substances that would have nothing to do with Sophia.
Yes.
I would not know from that page of all the nutrients and the chemicals and the molecules. I would give me no clue of who you are. And so it's an addiction to nutritionism. And everybody's jumped on the bandwagon, including, in fact, an awful lot of naturopathic doctors now are in the same thing. They're giving you supplements, they're giving you medicines, it's all like with that belief that we are not enough. My belief is that we are better with less. That the more anyway, that's kind of a roundabout way to talk about, and I know I hear that all the time. It is simply not the case. My patients get healthier on fruit, even bottled fruit juice, which I don't like. It's feels like sugar water, but they still do well.
Sure. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'd love to continue chatting with you, and I would really, really like to offer you the opportunity to come back again, because this is such a deep subject to talk about, because we can go into it in so many different layers. But I do know that you have a program coming up. You said that you've got a 6-week program.
Yeah, it's coming up. It's a 6-week fasting detox group. I set that up kind of as an introduction, really, because the first 2 weeks are preparing for the fast. I set it up with the possibility of doing a 2-week fast in the middle, because I think you really need that to get any therapeutic results. And then 2 weeks at the end for transitioning. Um, as it turns out, because I love long fasts, several of the people in the previous group, one of them is on day 49, and this is her transition day of having some watermelon, and others have been doing over a month, and we found a way to keep coaching. But it's a good introduction. The first 2 weeks we really spend on finding why we're using this tool, getting, setting goals, setting intentions. We also work on finding our life purpose, because in my experience as a doctor, the people that get well are those who have a reason to live. The Japanese call it ikigai, and that's one of the principles in my 7 tools for aging, is the concept of having a life purpose. So
Yes.
work on that. We work on how to do the fast, and then we do the fast. And then transition, which is what I call the time between the fast and your everyday life. It might not be a surprise that that is very difficult. Fasting is like, we're good with extremes as humans, but moderation, who can do it? People say, oh, I just do it in moderation. No, you don't.
Mm.
Nobody does, really. So the transition is where you start with this new body and you begin to enter into life very gradually and very consciously. So this is like a short-term version of what it would be like to work with me privately, let's say, where we really do what it takes for as long as it takes. But the group is really fun. We learn so much, and everybody is just had such a fabulous time. And I can't wait to share that with more people.
Yes, well, we will put the links, all your links, in the comments below for everyone who is watching us. But I'd love for you to come back and talk more. Talk more about your group. Excuse me. Talk more about fasting and everything else,
Yeah, as you
and all
might
your
guess,
other tips.
I have a lot I can talk about,
Yeah,
so I could definitely all the
we
time.
could
And
definitely.
I love what you're doing, Sophia. I am so
Thank you.
excited to be here. I think you
Thank
are a beneficial presence on the planet.
Thank you. Thank you, Rainbow. And likewise, I'm really, on it just to bring about, any general health in people, especially as we age, how much is our healthcare systems and everything else not over needed, and a lot of it is through the aging process. So overused is the thing. Just because we don't look after our bodies and we don't realize, like a lot of people say, oh yeah, I'm going to get old, but that's later. I'll think about it later. And before you know it, you are getting down on that road, and it's too late to think about it because you've reached it, rather than little bit along the way. So
Yeah.
thank you, Rainbow. Like I said, do come back and talk to us. And for everyone who is watching, I will put all of Dr. Rainbow's links in the comments. If you're interested in anything to do with fasting or, overcoming the aging process, slowing it down, experiencing longevity, which is definitely quite possible, then do contact Rainbow.
Yeah, I'm happy to have a discovery call with anybody
Sure.
who's been here.
No problem. Thank you, Rainbow.